Kendrick Perkins claimed he would have locked up Jokic during his playing days, but what he actually locked up was any reasonable basketball analysis when he launched one of the most controversial attacks on an MVP winner in recent NBA history. In March 2023, the ESPN analyst ignited a media firestorm by questioning whether Nikola Jokic deserved his back-to-back MVP awards. And what followed was a complete dismantling of his arguments that revealed more about modern sports media than basketball itself. The controversy began on ESPN's First Take, when Perkins made a shocking claim about the Serbian center's MVP credentials. He pointed out that since 1990, only 3 players had won the MVP award while not ranking in the top 10 for points per game. Those players were Nikola Jokic in 2021, Dirk Nowitzki in 2007, and Steve Nash in 2005 and 2006. After naming these 3 players, Perkins turned to his co-host Stephen A. Smith with a loaded question that would spark outrage across the basketball world. "What do those guys have in common?" Perkins asked, letting his words hang in the air. "I'll let it sit there and marinate. You think about it." The implication was clear to everyone watching. He was suggesting that race played a role in these MVP selections, hinting that white European players were receiving preferential treatment from voters. But Perkins didn't stop there. He doubled down by claiming as a fact that 80% of MVP voters were white Americans. This specific statistic would prove to be his downfall because it was completely false. ESPN was forced to issue a public correction during a subsequent broadcast, with co-host Molly Karam clarifying that the NBA publicly announces its voters each year, and that a review showed the panel was much more diverse than what was portrayed by Kendrick Perkins. The basketball community's response was swift and brutal. Charles Barkley, never one to mince words, called Perkins' remarks asinine, silly, and stupid. He pointed out the obvious flaw in the racial bias argument. During his first MVP season in 2020-21, Jokic averaged 26.4 points, 10.8 rebounds, and 8.3 assists per game. While Stephen Curry led the league in scoring with 32.0 points per game, no player in NBA history had ever combined Jokic's level of scoring, rebounding, and playmaking from the center position. His 8.3 assists per game were more than most point guards average, creating a unique offensive engine that transformed how the Nuggets played basketball. Before you hear more about how the stats completely demolish Perkins' argument, make sure you're subscribed to catch every breakdown like this one. And drop a comment below telling us which player you think deserves more respect for their unconventional style of greatness. Because the NBA has always had players who didn't fit the traditional mold. The following season, Jokic's numbers became even more ridiculous. He improved to 27.1 points, 13.8 rebounds, and 7.9 assists per game. Again, Joel Embiid led the league in scoring with 30.6 points per game. But Jokic's all-around production was historically unprecedented. No center in NBA history had ever averaged those numbers across all 3 major statistical categories. But the most compelling evidence for Jokic's MVP case comes from analyzing what happens to the Denver Nuggets with and without him on the court. Advanced metrics reveal a stark reality that demolishes any argument against his value. When Jokic is on the floor, the Nuggets perform like a 65-win championship contender. When he sits on the bench, they collapse into what analysts describe as a terrible lottery team, or the equivalent of a 17-win disaster. This dramatic swing isn't just about individual statistics. It reflects Jokic's unique ability to elevate every teammate around him through his elite passing vision, court awareness, and basketball IQ. The Serbian center has never played alongside a prime all-star or all-NBA talent, forcing him to carry an enormous offensive burden while making everyone around him, despite not being the league's leading scorer. The controversy surrounding his award came during the playoffs, when Dallas was upset by the Golden State Warriors. But this criticism missed a crucial point. The MVP is a regular season award, and Nowitzki's impact during those 82 games was undeniable. What's particularly revealing about Perkins' attack is how it exposed the manufactured nature of modern sports media narratives. As JJ Redick pointed out during their confrontation, the goal wasn't sober analysis, but deliberate provocation, designed to create narratives that do not exist in reality. Charles Barkley described this approach as ESPN disease, where generating controversial debates for engagement takes priority over factual accuracy. Academic research further demolishes the racial bias argument that Perkins promoted. A study conducted by researchers at the University of North Florida analyzed NBA voting data from 1995 to 2005, covering the period that includes the Nash-O'Neal debate. The researchers found no statistically significant effect of race on the likelihood that a player will appear on an MVP ballot or on the number of votes he will receive after controlling for various player, team, and market characteristics. This disconnect between anecdotal feelings and empirical evidence highlights how sports discourse has become infected by broader societal polarization. The introduction of sensitive topics like race into basketball discussions serves as a reflection of a culture where emotionally charged subjects are weaponized to fuel engagement and entrench intellectual tribalism. Throughout this entire media circus, Jokic's response revealed everything about his character and priorities. Rather than engaging with the controversy directly, he demonstrated his trademark indifference to outside noise. When asked about achieving his 100th career triple-double, a milestone that critics had labeled as stat padding, Jokić delivered a perfectly self-deprecating response. "When you're stat padding, it's easy," he said with a smile. Turning the negative label itself revealed the tension between commercial incentives to create sensational content and journalistic responsibility to maintain truth. What makes this controversy even more absurd is that it failed to diminish Jokic's legacy in any meaningful way. His on-court production continued to speak louder than any media narrative. He would go on to lead the Nuggets to their first NBA championship in 2023, validating every argument about his transformative impact on team success. The criticism of Jokic's MVP awards represents everything wrong with contemporary sports discourse, where substance is sacrificed for spectacle and manufactured outrage. His case for those awards was built on an all-encompassing offensive production that transcended traditional positional boundaries and demonstrably elevated his entire team's performance. Rather than engaging with these artificial debates, Jokić has remained focused on what actually matters: winning basketball games and making his teammates better. His dignified response to manufactured controversy only reinforces his reputation as a generational talent whose value extends far beyond any single statistic or media narrative. Make sure to subscribe for more breakdowns that cut through the noise and focus on what really matters in basketball. And let us know in the comments which media controversy you think was the most ridiculous in recent NBA history.